going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy.
Review. This is our weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And this week we are back with the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty side stories slash flashback story of Kaito origin stories. We did the first one 2 weeks ago, and we are here this week to do the second, called The Path Forward by Akemi Dawn Bowman. My quick review at the top of this one is, we didn't talk about this at all, so I'm very curious your reaction. I have mixed feelings on this one. I think that the ending of this story is very cool and very interesting, and that's good because it leads us into wanting to read more or hear more, but I feel like the route we took to get there towards the beginning was a little slow and boring, for me personally.
I have to agree.
Okay.
But I think I liked the end enough that it made up for it that I didn't really care until you said that just now.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was like reading through the beginning of this and I was like, I'm bored. Like, I'm just bored, you know? So we can talk about that when we get into the full review itself, but as we said, the ending was very good. So if you're willing to wade through, as Amy said, it's definitely worth your time. So if you are interested in reading the story, and either it's been a long time for you since you read it, since it's come out, like, it came out in December, so like almost 2 months ago at this point, or if you have not read it at all, and that made you interested in doing so, please feel free to check the top link in the description down below. It is the same link that we had in the story from 2 weeks ago because both stories were in the same article, so it will take you to the same place, but we did it in two separate things because it was two full stories in one article, the way that they released it. And so that's also something that I guess could be said about it, is that if you read them both in one sitting, like I remember saying about the last one, A Test of Loyalty, which was the first Kaito origin story, that I felt like the ending kind of ended with a bit of a fart. Like it was just like, there's the end, you know, sure, you gotta wait till next week to get more, but it just kind of like fell a little flat for me at the end. And so I guess, based on my opinion, that feeling continued into the beginning of this one, and then it ended strong. So the first one started strong, the second one ended strong, and then in the middle there was, you know, maybe a little bit of less interesting stuff that you kind of have to get through. But that's just our opinion, of course, or at least, sorry, that's, as I just said, that's my compiled opinion, and you heard part of Amy's as well from last video and this one as well. But if you feel differently, we would love, as always, to hear from you down in the comments below. And before, I guess, we get onto the full review itself, please don't forget, hi, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We love making these videos for all of you. And if you enjoy the things that we do, and if this seems intriguing to you, and you have not done so already, please don't forget to subscribe and then ring that bell so you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, including more JaARs in the weeks to come as we go through all of the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty stories. We play more MTG Arena live every Monday on this channel from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time right here. And then every Friday we stream as well, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, but that's video games in general, not Magic specific. And this Friday we will be starting, so if you want to get in on the ground floor, we are starting our playthrough of X-Men Legends 2 for the PlayStation 2. We finished X-Men Legends 1 the week before the pre-release, then we were off last week for the pre-release. If you missed those videos, check them out on the channel. They were a lot of fun to make and put together. And then this Friday we will be here live, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, to start X-Men Legends 2, which, Amy, you have never seen before.
No.
But you just played through X-Men Legends 1.
Right. But, I mean, according to, like, the art that we've seen of it so far, it seems like it's newer and better quality, which is good, because X-Men 1 was a little lacking in that, but it's old, so I get it.
Yep. We shall see if it gets better.
You're like, yeah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, different people have different opinions on it.
I also hope it's less glitchy. But,
Uh-huh. Yeah, you can hope that.
Oh, no.
No matter what, I think it's going to be a good time, and I think people should come out and join us for it, because, yeah, it's going to be great.
Okay.
But, and then also, don't forget, we have other channels linked down in the description box below for Video Games for All and Gluten Free for All. Amy just had a new video come out
for Valentine's Day.
For Valentine's Day, which was this past Monday. So, happy belated Valentine's Day if you were not with us on stream when we wished you all a happy Valentine's Day.
And there will be a new one for March as well.
Exactly. So definitely stay tuned, ring the bells on all of those. And don't forget, if you need to be told, subscriptions on YouTube, different from subscriptions on Twitch. YouTube, totally free. Totally free. So, and you can cancel anytime, essentially. You can unsubscribe at any time that you wish. But if you want to find out when more of our stuff comes out, don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for doing so. So, on to the full review itself. We're with Kaito, we're with Tameshi, and we're with Aiko, Kaito's sister. Tameshi being the Moonfolk researcher. And I thought it was so interesting, because like right at the top of the story, in fact, at no point in this story did we have Aiko being consistent with herself from the prior story. I understand why, it's not a complaint, but she turns on a dime, it seems, because as Tameshi keeps describing his research, and describing what his plans are for the Tanuki Kami and the robot, and he wants to fuse them together so that he can then send it back to the spirit realm, essentially, because the Tanuki Kami was born in the mortal realm, which is something that has never happened before to their knowledge, or at least based on what they said.
Which is a big fucking deal.
Big time, I agree. And so Tameshi wants to see a normal Kami would not be able to fuse with a machine. But because the Tanuki Kami was born on this realm, or in this realm, where the technology was then created, it's possible that it would react differently to be able to actually fuse with the robot. Spoilers, so I guess.
That's what he was banking on?
Spoilers, I guess, it works, but not in the exact way that he wanted.
Yeah. But isn't that always the way?
Yes. Especially when you're dealing with living things and free will and whatnot.
Oh, God.
It happens. It's like, I'm gonna hope that this thing does this thing. Oh, it didn't do that thing? It did something different that was totally opposite that, and now I'm screwed? Yeah, you were messing with free will. What do you expect? Anyway, Aiko...
Consent is important, guys. I feel like I say that in every episode now.
Amen to that, though. That's super important. Very relevant. Kaito kind of makes a point... Or, sorry, Aiko. Not Kaito. Aiko, the sister, made a point in the last video of saying, like... Or in the last episode where we talked about it. Made a point of, like, don't just go in and, like, destroy all of his research. You don't know what he's doing, what he's working on. And now in this one, immediately, like, and never at any point is she like, your research is great, keep going. She immediately is like, you have to stop immediately, never do this again, stop doing what you're doing. Oh my God, what the hell is wrong with you, basically. And Tameshi's like, well, but I'm doing all these great things, and I could...
Hey,
and
like, there's a reason for this. Like, I didn't just, I'm not just an asshole.
Yeah, and Kaito's like, but, Aiko. They're siblings, so their names are very similar. I apologize. Aiko says, yeah, but you could destroy the spirit realm. You could destroy all of Kamigawa. Right. Like, you could destroy the gates.
I don't know what kind of ramifications this will have.
Actually, yeah, I don't know that her concern was destroying the spirit realm. I think her concern was destroying the gates, which allow crossing between the spirit realm and the mortal realm, which, as we've heard in these stories, is the concern of basically the Kami realm and the mortal realm fusing together and kind of merging into one plane. Which would probably be bad, right? We all agree that that's bad, right?
I don't know that we all agree that. I think during the war, fucking bad, right? Mm-hmm. But now, is it? I mean, they kind of, like, coexist.
Kind of.
Right?
Yeah.
And, I guess her point was like, you know, be respectful of them and like they'll be respectful back kind of thing.
And you're messing with stuff you don't understand. Like it's research, right? I get it.
Oh, I didn't mean in terms of the research.
Oh, okay.
I just meant like in terms of interacting with Kami.
Gotcha. See,
just like the layman's guy or whatever.
Sure.
You know, the random person on Kamigawa. You know,
Right.
if they interact with the Kami, then what they should just do is like have a modicum of respect for them when interacting with them, so that you know it can be reciprocated.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be kind of go as far as what they're doing now, which is like building extravagant gates for when they walk through, when the Kami come through, and greeting them when they come through and treating them like gods. But it's also not, you know, let's make these robots to try to fuse them with Kami so that we can send it into the other realm and damn the consequences, you know?
Right.
There's probably a happy medium in there somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like it.
Maybe. Kind of, sort of.
You know?
I found it very interesting, though, because it seemed a bit to me like that was similar to real-world discussions of the caution behind, or the caution that some people bring up with regard to technological advancement.
Okay.
Like too fast, too soon could lead to whatever. I'm not going like Terminator, right? I'm not talking about like Skynet stuff where it's like the AI is going to rise up and kill us, right? That's not what I'm referring to, but too much progress too quickly, either draining of natural resources to do so or whatever the case may be.
I don't think it's too quickly necessarily. I think it's just progress in general. Like, it's always going to devolve into, like, well, it's in the wrong person's hands, and so they're going to turn it into a weapon of some kind.
Yeah, the fear of weaponization.
No matter what it is,
sure.
Even though it has nothing to do with a weapon.
Well, and that was my, this might be a bit of a philosophical or sociological discussion, which I don't know that I necessarily wanted to get into, but it's something that I was thinking of, and I don't want to not talk about it. Tameshi is doing this research. So the availability or the possibility of this research exists. Aiko's point is, stop doing it. It's bad. It could fall into the wrong hands. So just stop. Destroy everything you've come up with already and stop doing it. But the possibility of it happening exists because it's possible in the world, right? I mean, Tameshi did it, so it's possible to do it. Like, law of averages, I don't even know if that's the right term, but like, I feel like, you know, what is it, 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters could write, you could end up with Shakespeare. Like, I feel like eventually this could come out regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I think her point is, like, or not really her point so much as just, like, her hope is that the next time that someone comes out with something similar, she'll stop them too.
I guess, unless it's after she's dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it could be at any point in the future,
she
but
won't have any control over it. So what's she gonna do then?
I don't know.
Exactly.
It's just weird to me. Like, you know, I just feel like eventually that result could occur regardless.
I mean, I think the other thing too is her point was like, what's the purpose in that? Like, what you're doing has no purpose.
Yeah.
So why would someone do this? Why would someone make this technology to create this result?
Right.
If the result doesn't make sense? So maybe her point is, if you stop what you're doing and take all the research and burn it, you know, then no one else is going to come along and make the same thing, because why would they?
Sure.
You know, it's like the argument of, you know, why would you make a product if there's no market for that product?
Sure. And it seems like Tameshi may be the one who is the best suited for it, because Tameshi is the one who seems to know the most about this Tanuki Kami, right? he was aware of the fact that this Tanuki Kami was born on the plane. And, like, if you're not... I imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine that if you come across a Kami and you look at that Kami, it's the same as any other Kami to you. In that, like, it may look different, but it's still a Kami. So, like...
And I'm sure that Kami wasn't, like, wearing a name tag saying, hi, I'm a Kami born on this realm.
Right, exactly.
You know, like... Yeah.
Hospital bracelet from where it was born, like... No, it's not. So, yes, I agree with that. And so, if that's the case, and, I mean, Kaito and Aiko being the samurai that are from Eganjo and from, like, Kyodai's temple... means that they have knowledge of Kyodai, knowing that the Tanuki Kami's call is similar to the layered call of Kyodai, whereas no other Kami does that, and that's kind of what clued them into the fact that this was kind of a big deal. So, yes, maybe it was all right place, right time of all these people coming together to be able to find that particular piece of research where it was 1 in a million and it will never occur again. So, yeah, like I said, it was just something I was thinking of in terms of, like, could it just happen again at some point in the future? But yeah, it probably is that these are the only people that could come together to put this to be.
Perfect circumstances.
Exactly.
Which, realistically, should make her probably think the opposite. Like, think, oh, this was meant to happen because it's such perfect circumstances of, like, all these... you know, all the right people coming together at all the right times, you know, and making it, like, fit together perfectly. I would think would make someone look at that from a distance and say, that's probably destined to be. But who am I to say?
Well, and we'll see, right, with the continuation of Kaito in these stories and or into the future of Magic in general, now that we know what has happened with this Tanuki Kami, we'll see what that does for Kaito in terms of if it was in fact destiny.
Well,
I mean, it seems like it was, but...
Well, so I think it changing into what it actually changed into was destiny, right? So, like... her being skeptical of the initial thing and coming in with all these other people all at the same time, having that whole discussion, and then it evolving into what happened after was what was destiny, you know?
Sure.
So, yeah.
I found, again, we found that interesting, that's why I brought it up. Let's talk about writing for a little bit. So, kind of stepping away from the story and looking at the fact that it's a written work and what that means, there was a bit of, for me at least, and I guess for you because I was reading it out loud and so I was having trouble,
right.
There was a bit of pronoun confusion for me in the beginning, indicating who was speaking at any given time.
Like who, okay, it's that person, okay. But like you had to read it and then kind of place it who it was
or like
afterwards.
Right, or like visually quickly read ahead and be like, okay, the end of the sentence says Aiko said. Okay, so this is Aiko speaking, right? But like a sentence begins or a dialogue begins and you're like, okay, who's saying this? You know, or it'll say, you know, Kaito felt that way when he looked at Tameshi. Period. He said, and then dialogue starts. Okay, who's the he? Kaito? Because Tameshi's the last person you mentioned.
Right.
But Kaito was the subject of that first sentence.
Right.
So you would think that the he would still reference Kaito, but does it? Or does it reference Tameshi? And then that sentence of he said, that dialogue is not clear as to who it is, so you have to wait and go to the next one, and okay, that one could have only been said by Tameshi, but it's in response to the previous one, so the previous one was Kaito, and it's like, you know, and so again, I don't think that's bad writing, and I don't know how to fix that, but it did come up, and I struggled with it a little bit, and it bothered me.
You can fix it by saying who is speaking the dialogue first, as opposed to at the end.
Yes, or using their name instead of a pronoun. Right. If the prior sentence mentions two male characters, right, and then you use the he pronoun following it. Sure.
Yeah. just saying, this person says.
I can understand, though, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, next time, do it this way. Like, I can understand an author's desire to not want all of their sentences or all of their paragraphs to be so structured of, Tameshi said this, Kaito said this, Eiko said this, right? Like, I get that. It's just that for that particular section, and it really was only in the beginning there, right? It's not like it was rampant throughout the story. It was only in the beginning. It happened like 2 or 3 times in a couple of paragraphs, and it was just like, oh my god. I felt like an idiot, which is fair, and maybe I was, but also it was like I just don't. I'd like to understand who's speaking so that I know like what context to give it. That's perfectly reasonable. Yeah. So
I think it is poor writing.
It was something I struggled with in that section, and that was the only part where it bothered me. It was the only part where I noticed it, I should say. Okay, so we talked about that as well. So then we get to the point of the ninjas coming in, right? Satoru Umezawa's men or soldiers. They are called, I have it on the last thing, nope, I'm not going to get it. I have to look it up. The Hyozen Reckoners. Damn it. I was like, I have it on the tip of my tongue, but no, I had to look it up. But now I know. They're the Hyozen Reckoners, and they followed Kaito, we find out. Nari? Yes, Nari being the kind of the named one of them that we heard from, who was an expert in poisons. And she kind of, the group of ninjas, kind of show themselves. And it makes sense. Like, Kaito's like, how did I not see them? They're ninjas, dude. You're not supposed to see them, otherwise they're not doing their job very well. They were following him all along. They show up, and he tries not to give himself away, but based on the discussions he was having, it's kind of obvious that he is going to be betraying Satoru Umezawa. And Nari kind of says, it's fine, Satoru didn't trust you ever anyway, and so here you are, or here we are, because of it. So they both being Satoru and Kaito, kind of see each other for who they really are now. And a fight ensues with Eiko and Kaito versus these, like, 5, I think it was, ninjas. And they said, they, being Kaito, mentions that he and Eiko are outnumbered. So even though they're strong enough to be able to handle this, they're not strong enough to be able to handle 5 ninjas. Like, it's just numbers, right? It's not going to work out that way. And then the Jukai monks show up. So you have a bit of, like, Ixalan-y stuff going on, right? Where it's like pirates and vampires and dinosaurs and whatever. But this time it's... Yeah, exactly. But this time it's samurai versus ninjas. And then, because it was 2 on 5 in that regard, then it became monks versus ninjas. And the samurai are able to get away, and we don't really hear what the conclusion of that particular fight is. I don't think we really need to hear the conclusion of that particular fight. Nope. But it happened. They were the cavalry riding in to save the day, kind of a thing, and then our main characters get to run away with the Tanuki Kami, who then does form a bond with Kaito, and then kind of eliminating the purpose of all of the discussion anyway, fuses with the robot.
Right.
Which was like, not at all. Eiko wanted the opposite of that, and then it just happens. But Tameshi's not in control of it anymore because now it's with Kaito. Right. And we find out, interesting, because as far as I know, this is the first we are hearing of something like this. But I'm being vague for a second, and I apologize. Since War of the Spark, we have gotten a lot of uniqueness when it comes to planeswalkers and their sparks, like how they spark and how they planeswalk and stuff like that. We got the Wanderer, we'll see her soon in this set, but we got the Wanderer who doesn't planeswalk to places, she stops on places and has to focus to do that as opposed to focus to leave. And so that's unique. No other planeswalker has done that we have seen. We have Kaya, who is able to take a non-planeswalker with her, one who's smaller than her, which she did with Rat by basically fusing them into her and then planeswalking, and it's very weird for her to do so.
Yeah.
And that's something we've never seen before. And now, while we have had the, like, Karn Venser situation, where, like, Karn is essentially a robot or a construct that was given a spark because he got Venser's spark put into him when Venser died. Okay, so that's a thing. And now we have something similar, but not exactly the same, where now the Tanuki robot, or the Tanuki Kami, whose name we find out is Himoto, through Himoto's connection to Kaito. So many names, I'm trying. We find out that Himoto's full name is Himoto, the Kami of the Spark. And meaning that when Himoto and Kaito form this bond together, Kaito receives his spark. And planeswalks, I don't think they specifically said it, but I think it's obvious that he planeswalks with Himoto.
Right. I found it weird that this new Kami was a Kami of the Spark. Because planeswalkers having sparks is super old.
Sure.
So I would think if there was going to be a Kami of it, it would have been born before now?
So here's the only thing I have that could help you, maybe.
Okay.
This is what I wrote down. I'll read what I wrote down and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
So I wrote, it's interesting that that's the case. Since the Tanuki Kami is so closely connected to Kyodai, who's so closely connected to the Emperor, who is the Wanderer, who has her own spark, and the Emperor has a connection with Kaito, in that they are friends with one another. They have that type of a relationship together. So now you have Himoto being the Kyodai to Kaito, like Kyodai was to the Wanderer, essentially, or like Kyodai was originally to Michiko, I guess. And then because Kyodai implemented this new rule that we learned about, where, in the saga stories, where the Kami are the ones who pick the new emperors. It's not based on bloodline anymore. It's based on who actually is best for that position in terms of the advancement of Kamigawa. And so Kyodai and the other spirits picked the Wanderer, as we now know the Wanderer is the Emperor, by the way, if that's unclear. Kyodai picked the Wanderer, who is a sparked planeswalker, and so if there was that connection where the spirits knew, hey, this individual seems very good, and they should be the Emperor, well, they have sparked and are a planeswalker. So maybe that Kami then know, oh, this sparking thing seems pretty important, and so then the new Kami that's born on the material plane can do it. Maybe. I this is purely speculative, but you asked, so I figured I would attempt to answer. And also it could be that because it's the only one born on the plane, on the material plane, right, or the real world, then it's the only one that could have possibly done that because it's a spark that would have to interact with a humanoid individual, as opposed to just the Kamis in the Kami world, right?
Yeah, but like...
I don't know any of that.
I mean, it's not the kind of thing where the one born on this plane would have trouble going to the spirit plane because of these portal things.
Sure.
So, like, that argument I feel like can't be made where it's like, well, it's of the spark because it needs to be able to go to both planes.
No, that's not what I was saying. I mean... Oh, okay. Okay. Fair enough. I don't know, obviously. I think it's a fair question, and if people have other theories or ideas, you are always more than welcome to talk about anything that you want in relation to anything that we've talked about. In the comments down below, that's what they're for. We would love to hear from you. So I wrote, that was the last thing I had, was Kyodai is to the Wandering Emperor as Himoto now is to Kaito. Except that, like, Kyodai's not the one who gave the Wanderer her spark, at least not that we know. It's possible, but I doubt it. But now we know Himoto is the one who either gave and or ignited the spark in Kaito. Interesting. And it's just another way to get a Planeswalker now that we have seen, which, like I said, seems to kind of be the post-War of the Spark MO with Magic Story, is that they're finding new and unique ways for Planeswalkers to planeswalk or begin planeswalking or something to that effect.
Okay, have previous Planeswalkers all been, like, super similar in their reasoning for becoming Planeswalkers?
I mean, as far as I know, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, all others to this point that we're aware of have been, they're living their lives, traumatic event occurs, they spark, they planeswalk for the first time.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, and even that may still be how the Wanderer and Kaya, for example, got their sparks. It's just that the way that they then planeswalk is slightly different, and so it's just kind of playing with the design space that you have, I think.
Okay.
And I don't dislike it by any means. I'm just saying it's something that I'm aware is kind of visibly, if that's the right word to use, visibly different or noticeably different in this post-War of the Spark world.
Well, I'm just wondering if they're sitting there going, Planeswalkers are boring because they're too samey. So now we're going to try to, like, get really interesting and creative about how people become Planeswalkers.
Maybe.
Or how they are Planeswalkers. But
like I said, I think the design space is there. I don't want to cut you off if you had more to say. I think the design space is there. I think they're playing with that design space. I don't hate it. And I think that is somewhat inevitable. Like, even in comic books, right, which are things that I'm aware of, like, you have a particular rule, and then when that rule kind of runs its course, you kind of see how you can tweak that rule and or just find a way to write that rule out of existence, essentially, and say, like, okay, it doesn't actually have to be that. It's just that everyone that we've ever met always played by that rule, but now we found somebody that doesn't play by that rule. So, hey, this is the new normal, that this is something that can occur now, and we will likely start seeing more of somehow. So, I don't know. Like I said, I don't hate it. If you do, let us know. Like, if you're like, nah, I think it's real dumb, they could absolutely have stayed more with that theme, whatever. We would love to hear any and all of those thoughts. I don't know about you. I did not have much else for this one.
No. I got really excited when now I'm doing it.
The names are tough, man.
I know.
Kaito's the main character?
Kaito.
Okay.
When Kaito became a Planeswalker, like, I got really excited.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know. Talking about it now, I'm like, not as into it.
So,
I don't know.
So this
maybe
is...
I just, when you were reading it, because the beginning was more boring, maybe I was just like...
waiting
really
for something.
Like, I was really anticipating something.
Sure.
And I got something big. So, like, I was like, yeah, victory. But now that we're sitting here analyzing the story and kind of comparing it in our minds to other stories, maybe it's not as exciting.
And like I said, we reviewed these as two separate stories. Maybe the author knew, and or Wizards, the story team, knew, and anticipated that one of these stories would not be enough, and so they put the two of them together, despite the fact that each individual one was the length of a full story, but was not necessarily as impactful as they wanted one full story to be. So I'll take that with a grain of salt, and again, if you think that that's the case, that like, no, you should have read them both at once or reviewed them both, that's fair. Yeah. It was more for timing purposes, because like, reading two full stories and then reviewing two full stories is a lot.
Especially for these episodes.
For these episodes, for our time and you know, what we can do. If we have to, we'll do it, right? We've done it for past stuff, but we stopped doing like, okay, they released 2 stories in a week, let's hurry up, do those 2 stories and review them. It doesn't do the stories justice. And so in this particular instance, now we're sitting here going, well, it wasn't really enough. Yeah, but they tried to remedy that by putting them both in the same article. And so...
Well, I think what they did was they took the typical, like, story arc, you know, and they just stretched it across the two stories.
Sure.
So that the end of the first story, you were kind of like, well, this is a little boring and uneventful.
Yeah.
Because it hadn't gotten to the climax of the story yet, even though it was the end.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was waiting for this one to get there, because it was 2 separate stories, but they weren't really separate.
Right, because they were both on the same main topic and essentially just straight up continue where the other one left off and didn't really explain anything about what happened previously. Because in other stories you might do that. You might have like a little blurb where it's like, you know, Chandra remembered back to, you know, moments ago when we heard that noise coming from the Voldaran castle, right, of the Voldaran estate, and now she's ready to go, right? Like that kind of thing where you transition from one story to the next and you have to kind of remind people like, hey, we know that this story was released a week before since the last one or whatever, so here's your reminder so you don't have to go back and read every other story before reading this one every time a new story comes out. So, I get that. And speaking of like Chandra, but really just referring to like the main story of, at that point, Crimson Vow. Next week, we will be back with the main story of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, because I just, besides the saga stories, which were quick, and so we did them all kind of in 2 episodes, even though there were like 10 or 11 of them.
Right.
I'm gonna try my best to do these stories in the order that they were released. So we had these side stories that came out in like mid-December, like a month plus before the rest of the stories did. Then we had all of the main stories, and then we had the side stories. So that's the order that we're going to review them in, because I have nothing else to go off of in terms of how else to review them. So next week we'll be back with main story number 1, and we will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll do side story 2, I guess you could call it, since the Kaito origin stories was kind of 1. We'll do the side story 2, 3, 4, etc. However many more there are or are going to be. We will review those, and when we're done, we're done. There is, we did notice, a manga that has been released. If we can review that, I would love to. I don't know how it will work or if it will work, but we will take the time, read through it, and we'll see. If it's something that we feel deserves a JaAR, we'll do a JaAR. If we feel that it doesn't, then we won't. You know, or we can talk about it at the end of one of them or something like that.
Then we'll close the JaAR.
Wow. Wow. I want to close this JaAR now so that we can get away from that having... I liked it.
You did?
I did like it. It was great.
It was terrible. I hated it.
I loved it. I will say, we talked about this earlier. I will say, this past Monday when we played Kamigawa Neon Dynasty on stream for the first time, what a great stream. So much fun. Some crazy games, too.
Yes.
That I don't know that I deserved to win in the way that I did, but I did.
Yeah. I wouldn't say you didn't deserve it, because I think there was a lot of suffering that it counterbalanced.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All the land. That's how I play Magic, folks. But, drawn too many lands.
Yeah, it was certainly interesting.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, some explosive moments. So the VOD is up on the channel. You're more than welcome to watch it.
Roller coaster-y.
Yeah. So you're welcome to go watch the VOD for yourself. It's 2 hours long. That's how long we stream. So be aware of that. But we also will be back this Monday for more. So you're always welcome to join us live. And we would love to have you. And then I feel like, oh, right. I mentioned that we filmed at the pre-release this past weekend, and you can go check those videos out on the channel, but This one's still sealed. We still have a few sealed ones. So if you...
Sorry if it's glary, but...
Oh, yeah.
Because of the plastic.
Sorry. But if you missed out on it, every Monday we're going to be coming out with new opening videos for the next at least 4 weeks of these. So if you missed any of them and you've made it this far in this video, don't forget we give away the codes for MTG Arena from these as well. And by giveaway, I mean we just put them in the video. And so the first person to get in, see that code be given out, can watch and get that code for themselves. So don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so that you will get a notification when the video comes out on Monday so that you can get there, be the first one there to grab that code and put it in and get yourself some cool free stuff. So definitely do not hesitate to do that. That's our way of saying thank you, and that's why if you've gotten this far in this video, I have no problem telling you that, because we don't always, sometimes we do, but we don't always advertise it in the video itself that we're going to be doing that. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So this is my way of letting you all know, hey, don't forget, we do this thing. So thank you so very much for being here for this particular video. I really hope everybody enjoyed. Obviously, like I mentioned, if you have strong opinions one way or another about any of the things that we talked about, letting us know in the comments is a great way for you to join your fellow commenters and us as we show off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
That's right. We're back. We're into it. I'm excited to see what these main stories have going for them because this Kaito origin was very interesting to me, and so now I'm ready for more. Right? We may have been like, it was a little slow here, but still, it's information that we are getting. We're learning about a new character. Let's get into the set and the stories. I'm excited for it. So definitely stay tuned for more from us here at this Geek for All family of channels. And so from us here, I have been Joe.
And I'm Mimi.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.